Okay, guys, I'm going to try and explain to you the method and the process of how to do a couple of the maths questions. Now, I'm not going to literally do this for you, but I'm just going to talk you through how to go about answering it. So when you get a question like this, you've got to, they'll always give you fairly simple shapes and round numbers to work with. So yeah, let's have a look at how to go about doing it. So this question is asking you, calculate the material cost of manufacturing 50 units. So let me just talk you through how to go about answering that. So the most important thing to do is to break the shape down into simpler shapes. So here we've actually got, first of all, the base, which is just a cuboid. So it's like taking that the lower section of the shape, and we're just working what's the volume of that first. So volume is obviously width times depth times height. So with this, we've got, this is 15 wide, because I took that from that dimension there, by 20 deep and 5 high. So we can literally just like work that out. So the first thing to do is to work out the volume of lower cuboid. And you get a mark for that. So that's step one. Step two is you then work out what's the volume of the upper semicircle with the whole subtracted. So volume of semicircle. And that's where you're going to need to use pi r squared to do that. And remember, once you've got the volume of the semicircle, or the cross section, sorry, I shouldn't sound getting confused, sorry. You need to, that's it, you're using, find the area of the semicircle first. So the area is just the two-dimensional space that uses up. So once you've got that, you then need to work out you've got to then multiply this. So whatever this is going to be, so the area of the semicircle, let's just call that x. Okay, so stage 3 is going to be then doing x, and then multiplying that by the depth. Now the depth, if you see from the side, we've actually got 2 of these little fins here. So the depth is going to be 5, because that's the width of one of these fins. And you'll see that the depth of the other one is the same, because 15 minus 10, that little gap there, is also 5. So we can actually just add these together, and that will give us the depth. So we can do x times 10 equals I don't know, just call that SV for semicircle volume. Okay, so that will give us the volume. Now to get the total volume, we're going to take the answer from number 1 and number 3, and then the TV total volume is literally just adding those two together. Okay, so equals, I'll just say SV plus cuboid volume. So I apologize for my dreadful maths representations. Okay, once we've done that, you'll already get 4 marks for getting that far, so that's good news. Now, once we've done that, we now need to get on to working out the mass, the mass that we've actually got here. So mass equals, if you hopefully remember from science, is density times volume. Okay, now the density that we've got here of the material is that. So you can take that value, and then your answer from the top section here. So the mass would be that number, so 0.000448 times TV, total volume. And then that will give you the mass for one shape. Then what we need to do is to work out how much mass there would be in 50 units. So we've got 50 units here. So to do that, we need to go equals, let's call this mass total. So total mass. So MT is going to be whatever the result of that is above there. So we're now going to need to work out the, sorry, just need to think through this. The cost. Yeah, so, okay, so we've got the total mass now. Okay, so the mass times 50 units. So we're going to do, it's going to be the total mass T, times, sorry, I keep getting the wrong symbol, That's going to be times then the quantity that we're making. So we're making 50 of them. And then that will give us the mass of the whole lot. So whatever that's going to be. So God, this is where my representations are awful. So that will give us like sort of what should I call this? Gross mass total, something like that. So that's all of the mass for making 50. Okay. Now what we need to do, cost per 500 grams, is we can divide that value by 500 and then multiply that result by the cost, 18. And then that will give us cost per unit, CPU. And then that's the final answer. The good news is, guys, like with any maths questions, if you don't get the final answer correct, but you've shown working along the way, you'll get marks all the way along for that. So, there's a total of something like 5 marks for the calculating question. Then you can get 4 marks along the way and get the final answer wrong, and you've got most of the marks there. So that's the good news with it. Papers and boards, this one is fairly straightforward because we're just literally looking at what are the different applications of particularly bleed-proof paper, duplex card, and mold paper pulp. So have a little look at these. So bleed-proof paper is used for like marker renderings that we use in design. Duplex card is used for sort of food packaging and liquid containers like milk, like card milk cartons and card juice cartons. Because it's got a layer of plastic along the inside so it doesn't leak. And then mold paper pulp is like what's used on egg boxes that are not plastic, sort of molded paper pulp. And this is more protective. Now, on to another maths question. There's only 2 maths questions in the paper, so yes, there is no need to panic. Okay, now I'm going to do my best to explain this to you and how to do it. Right, so what we've got to do here is we've got to compare the cost of 2 manufacturing processes. So we've got the method 1 is wastage and method 2 is redistribution. So wastage means using a CNC machine to literally cut out from this solid block here, literally cut out the waste material so that you leave the final product there. A redistribution method is where you have a mold and you pour in the liquid aluminium into the mold and there's no wastage with that. So we've got to compare which one's more expensive. So if we start off with the machined one or the CNC machine version first. Okay. So to do this, first thing to do is to get the volume, which we can work out. In this case would be 80 times 30 times 10. Now, I'm not going to do this for you, but you can like take that equals, VT, total volume. Okay, so we've got the total volume. And okay, to work out the, what we then need to do is like get the cost for the volume. So we're going to take then, so the cost, that's going to equal the block volume, so VT. And we're going to divide that by the cost of the material, the cost of aluminium. So that's £4 per 100,000. So you say cost of aluminium. Now you actually would get a mark for even just writing that formula there. Okay, so now we'll actually work this out. Okay, so the cost is going to be something like this. So the actual cost for the machine version is going to be, whatever your results, so the total volume divided by 100,000, which is that's the volume of material there to make up the cost. So you work that out first, and then you divide the whole thing by 4. And then that will give you, sorry, the 4 is the pounds per 100,000. That will then give you the cost per unit, so the CPU cost per unit there. Okay, now we've got to work out the total cost. So CT, cost total, is going to be C cost per unit times the volume, so that's 5,000 units, so that's times 5,000 there, and that will then give you your sorry, of course it does, written out already, so then that will give you your CT. So that's the CNC That's the CNC version. So then the cast version, so if you're using die casting. So this one is actually a little bit more straightforward. You'll notice it says cost of manufacturing a mold for a redistribution process. So for casting, you obviously need a mold for it. So it's 3,000, big to actually have a mold for it. So what we need to do is to work out how much more or less expensive is it. So yeah, so let's go about figuring this out. So yeah, let's see. We've got the volume of the seat clamp is 5,600 there. Okay, so we're going to start off in a very similar way. So cost for one, so CPU, cost per unit, is going to equal that 5,600. And we're going to do the same thing as divide that by 100,000. And that's the volume from the cost. So work that out first, and then multiply that by £4, and then that will give you your cost per unit. Okay, so now we need to take that, and we're going to do the cost total, which actually no, this isn't the cost total. Sorry, this is cost volume. So this is then going to take the cost per unit, and we're going to multiply that by the number that we need to make. So that's 5,000, and that gives us the cost volume. Okay. So once we've got that, we then need to show what is the cost with the mold factored in. So then we can do cost total down here equals cost volume, which is obviously this one here, adding, plus £3,000, which is the cost of the mold. And then that will give you your final answer. Again, you'll get marks along the way for that. So if you didn't get that right straight away, no worries.